Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, the 11th installment in the Call of Duty franchise, places itself in a futuristic setting that places an emphasis on sci-fi tropes. It's also a game of firsts. It's the first Call of Duty game since Call of Duty 2 where the majority of the game's engine was rewritten. It's the first game in the franchise to employ an A-list veteran cast of actors in leading roles. It's the first game in the series that explores a far future setting whose story takes place between the years 2054 and 2061. And for its credit, the game is a massive improvement over not only its predecessor with Call of Duty Ghosts, but the previous games that came before it as well, for a variety of reasons. This is also the first game in the series helmed by Sledgehammer Games, who had only held supporting credits in previous entries. As an FPS game, as a Call of Duty game, as a major blockbuster game released at the tail end of 2014, this game delivers in spades. It's a roller coaster of near non-stop fast-paced sci-fi action from start to finish. It's a gargantuan step forward from what Ghost was just the year prior. The story of the game follows United States Marine Jack Mitchell, portrayed by veteran actor Troy Baker, and a private military corporation known as Atlas, who provide services to the highest bidder. Atlas, ran by CEO Jonathan Irons, portrayed by Kevin Spacey before his ostracism from Hollywood, holds a dire secret that will challenge alliances both on the domestic and international stages. The story here starts off intriguing. The characters and overall setup are interesting, gaining momentum until about the halfway mark. Then it becomes rather cliche and by the numbers, with the ending just fizzling out on an unfulfilled cliffhanger. That's disappointing when you see just how strong the game starts only for it to go off rails, even if it doesn't result in a complete crash by the end. I will say that the story is good enough for what's here, since it provides numerous action set pieces that have you on the edge of your seat at a rapid pace. Speaking of the pacing here is appropriate, even if it's a bit too fast at times. But even when it slows down, the game never becomes boring or monotonous. By the end of the game, I was ready to be done. If they had stretched the plot out even longer, then I think the novelty of it would have worn off immediately. Fortunately, that doesn't happen. Even with the rather predictable plot twist, I remain thoroughly entertained to the end of the campaign. From a gameplay perspective, this is one of the better Call of Duty games simply for two reasons. For one, the game is fast-paced. It's not a slower game like Ghost was, and that certainly helps it tremendously. For two, it's one of the more creative games in the series. I will give props where it's due. Sledgehammer Games went all out with this sci-fi theme. There's things in here that Call of Duty had not attempted before this, and the sci-fi stuff actually works. This is the first Call of Duty title that doesn't have a HUD. Instead, the HUD has been reworked onto the weapons themselves as hologram projections. This removes unnecessary screen clutter, which greatly improves immersion. This is the first Call of Duty game that uses energy weapons, such as lasers, for example. But not only that, the energy weapons rely on a battery system, meaning the weapons have ammunition as long as the battery is active, so they don't rely on a traditional ammo system. This gives the player and gameplay at large a greater degree of variety. The game experiments with different sci-fi tropes, including the implementation of mechs, hover tanks, armed remote-controlled drones, exosuits that allow for new mechanics such as double jumps, dashes, speeder bikes, manual cloaking for full invisibility, and more. The game developers really committed to providing an authentic sci-fi experience without making the player overpowered. It still feels like a grounded FPS shooter, even if it does borrow some ideas from other games, like Titanfall, for example. The campaign specifically incorporates all of these tropes, but not everything gets enough screen time to stand out. The exosuit in particular doesn't have much of a purpose in the campaign, from a gameplay perspective. Some of the other stuff like the speeder bikes and the unique vehicles in the game are only seen one time in one set piece for the entire length of the campaign, which is no longer than the standard length for any Call of Duty game. This is disappointing on some level, but as mentioned before, if the game was dragged out any longer, the selling point would have become the game's greatest handicap rather than its strength. Regarding the mission structure, they're all varied. None of them are similar to each other. There's a stealth mission thrown in here about midway through. There's a surveillance mission that involves a drone. There's a boat escape sequence that's framed as a set piece. There's a greater set piece involving the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. There's a dynamic, albeit structured, highway chase set piece. Long story short, it's not a boring campaign in the slightest. Again, I do believe the game loses steam by the end because it just throws so much at you until you realize that it doesn't have much left to give, but that's not really a bad thing. The momentum is maintained throughout the campaign, which is the point here. As far as performance goes, I encountered only one glitch which was never addressed. It's about 20 minutes in one specific level early in the game where you and a few AI companions must enter this elevator to continue the stage. However, 2 of the AI companions malfunction and just stand in place. I even tried pushing them manually to go into the elevator. Unfortunately, after a few good attempts, I decided to bite the bullet and restart the stage from the very beginning, which did aggravate me to some degree considering I played this game on veteran difficulty, and the beginning of that stage is one of the most annoying segments in the entire campaign. Having went through every Call of Duty campaign earlier this year from 2013's Ghost all the way through 2023's Modern Warfare 3, this is the only time I've had to restart a mission due to a glitch in one of these games. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, when viewing the campaign from a bird's eye view, is a great experience. It delivers a AAA blockbuster action game reminiscent of the 2014 film Elysium to great effect. Even with the story not fully living up to expectations, it never angered me or made me regret investing time into the campaign. While the game itself turned out to be a major success, it sold nearly 30% less than Call of Duty Ghosts, hinting at a problem within the fan base that the effort for innovation and creativity isn't rewarded in this franchise, and that reality wouldn't be plateaued for another 2 years.
Please, Pierre, work with me. Let us help each other.